A poor girl spotted a lost, hungry little boy on the street. She didn't know who he was, but she gave him the little bit of money she'd been saving up, just so he could buy something to eat. But what she didn't know was that the boy's father was one of the richest, most powerful men in the whole city, a billionaire. Before listening, please note that the following story contains experiences and situations that may evoke deep emotions related to family humanity and personal responsibility. This content is created for educational purposes, encouraging reflection, understanding, and compassion regarding the choices that can have a lasting impact on life. If you are not ready to engage with these emotions, please consider pausing before continuing. On a busy morning in Chicago, everything started off just like usual. People were rushing to work, cars were honking in traffic, and the streets were buzzing with energy. In the middle of all this, a man named Daniel Foster was having an outdoor meeting at a bustling cafe. He was a very wealthy man known by a lot of people, but not for being nice. Most people thought he was cold and only cared about money and business deals. That morning, Daniel had his 7-year-old son Ethan with him. Ethan stayed close to his dad, holding his hand for a while, but Daniel got distracted when his phone started glitching. He looked down, trying to fix it, and kept tapping the screen, not paying attention to anything else. When he finally looked up, Ethan was gone. The boy had wandered off into the crowd. Daniel's heart started racing. He jumped up, looking frantically all around him. He started yelling his son's name. He checked behind food trucks around park benches and asked passers-by. Nobody had seen the boy. Terrified, Daniel called the police and reported what had happened. He hoped they would find Ethan soon. While Daniel was searching for his son, little Ethan was wandering alone through the city. He didn't know where he was or how he'd gotten so far from his dad. The tall skyscrapers looked intimidating, and there were too many people hurrying in all directions. Ethan tried to talk to some adults. He said he was lost and really hungry, but everyone was too busy to notice him. They wouldn't stop. Some just glanced at him and kept walking. Others didn't even hear him. He felt invisible. He looked around and saw people chatting on phones, grabbing coffee, and entering stores. But nobody seemed to care about the little boy standing right there. He sat down for a moment, trying not to cry, but the hunger and fear were just too much. He stood up again and tried one more time to get someone's attention, but nothing changed. Ethan felt scared and alone, not knowing what to do next or where to go. Everything around him felt too big and too fast. Just when Ethan felt like giving up, something unexpected happened. A girl older than him stopped and looked at him. She had worn-out clothes, a faded hoodie, and messy hair. Her name was Sophia. She was 12 years old and didn't have much, but she had a good heart. Sophia had noticed Ethan's face. He looked sad and scared. She heard him sniffling softly and decided to walk over. She didn't know who he was or where he came from, but she could see he needed help. Sophia asked him what was wrong, and Ethan told her he was lost and hungry. She didn't have much money, but she reached into her pocket. She pulled out the only cash she had. She had been saving that money for something important. It was something she really needed, but she handed it over without a second thought. "Go get some hot dogs or something to eat," she said with a little smile. She was thinking of the street vendors nearby. She just wanted to help him feel better, even if only a little bit. Sophia didn't expect anything in return. Ethan stared at the money in his hand, not knowing what to say. He was shocked that someone had finally stopped to help him. Sophia didn't seem like the other people in the city. She wasn't in a rush, and she wasn't too busy to care. She sat down next to him on the curb and talked with him for a while. Ethan told her about his dad and how he had gotten lost. Sophia listened closely. Even though she was just a kid herself, she didn't act like one. She was calm and thoughtful. She told Ethan not to be scared and promised she would stay with him until he felt better. Sophia looked around, trying to see if anyone nearby seemed to be looking for a child. She had seen people get lost before, and she knew how scary it was. She had been scared plenty of times in her own life. She figured she should stay close and help Ethan feel safe. She knew someone would come looking for him. She didn't know it yet, but her decision to help was about to become very important. At that moment, Sophia had no idea how much her life was about to change. She thought she was just helping a little boy who was hungry and lost. She didn't know he was the son of one of the richest men in the city. To her, Ethan was just a kid who needed help, and that was enough. She didn't care about money or power. She just wanted to be kind. She told Ethan about some places nearby where they could go sit safely, like the nearby playground. She even walked slowly with him, making sure he didn't feel scared. As they walked, Sophia kept talking to him, trying to make him smile. She told him funny stories and asked him what his favorite things were. They talked about his go-to video games or superheroes. Ethan started feeling a little less scared. He was still hungry and missed his dad, but having Sophia there really helped. In that moment, she was like a big sister to him. Even though she didn't have much, she gave him everything she could. She gave her time, her care, and the only money she had. Far away from there, Daniel was still searching for his son. The police were already involved. They were asking people on the street if they had seen a little boy. They were showing Ethan's picture and describing his clothes. Daniel was filled with guilt and fear. He blamed himself for checking his phone and not keeping a close eye on his son. He promised himself he'd change if he could just find Ethan. But he knew nothing about the kind girl who had already found him. Sophia, unaware that the whole city was being searched, kept trying to keep Ethan calm. She thought maybe they could find a police officer together, or go somewhere safe like a community center where adults could help. She didn't know what would happen next, but now she felt responsible for Ethan. Even though she was just a kid herself, she acted more carefully than a lot of adults. That day, which had started just like any other, had turned into something very different for both of them, and nothing would ever be the same again. As Ethan slowly ate the food that he had just bought from a corner stand while Sophia stayed close by watching him carefully. She just wanted to make sure he was okay. She didn't leave his side, her eyes following every single bite he took. Even though she was still starving herself, she smiled, just happy that the boy wasn't crying anymore. She didn't know what was going to happen next, but in that moment she just wanted Ethan to feel safe. As they stood there, everything seemed peaceful. Then, off in the distance, someone started walking quickly toward them. Sophia was the first one to spot the man. He was wearing an expensive suit and walking with a purpose. Right beside him was a police officer. Sophia didn't know who they were, but something just felt off. Ethan looked up and suddenly recognized his dad. He jumped to his feet, so happy to see him again. But instead of a warm hug or a kind word, Daniel's face showed something else entirely, pure rage. He looked straight at Sophia and didn't even wait to ask questions. He saw her ragged clothes and dirty face and immediately jumped to a terrible conclusion. Daniel rushed toward his son, not with relief but with fury. His eyes locked onto Sophia and he raised his voice. He pointed at her, accusing her of trying to hustle Ethan for money. He thought she'd tricked his son or forced him to buy the food. He was convinced she had some scheme to use the boy and get something out of him. He didn't ask Ethan a single thing. He didn't stop to listen or understand. Instead, he screamed in front of everyone that Sophia was a thief, that she was dangerous, and that she needed to be punished. His booming voice made everyone around them stop and stare. Sophia froze. She was scared, confused, and didn't know what to say. She'd never been in a situation like this before. She wanted to speak, but the words just wouldn't come out. Ethan tried to speak up, saying that she had helped him, but Daniel wasn't listening. The police officer standing next to him just stood there, not sure what to do. He looked over at Sophia, then at Daniel, and then at Ethan. You could see the confusion in his eyes. He didn't see a girl who looked like a criminal. He saw a scared little girl in old clothes standing next to a younger boy who